Welcome. I'm Tracy Smith, and this is Here Comes the Sun, a closer look at some of the people, places, and things we bring you every weekend on Sunday morning. On this special edition, we feature interviews and exclusive excerpts from our sit-downs with comedians, each with their own signature style. We begin with Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld wrote, directed, and stars in Unfrosted, a story imagining the antics behind the invention of Pop-Tarts. The cast is full of his funny friends, including our contributor Jim Gaffigan, Melissa McCarthy, and Amy Schumer. Here's Mo Rocca.
When I was a kid,
it started with a stand-up bit.
When they invented the Pop-Tart, the back of my head blew right off.
You can eat 'em on the run, eat 'em just for fun.
And like any good comedy, it was based in truth. In 1964, when the Pop-Tart was introduced, 10-year-old Jerry Seinfeld fell hard. Did you have a favorite flavor right from the start?
Brown sugar cinnamon, obviously.
Yeah. I'm surprised that it took them that long to add frosting. It was 2 or 3 years.
Why, you think that's obvious, frosting?
Well, they look a little drab to me when they're not frosted.
You're a tough audience. I thought they were absolutely sensational instantly. But I did not know, and my parents did not know, these things are not food.
And they can't go stale because they were never fresh.
Control, we are go for launch. T-minus 3, 2, 1.
It should come as little surprise that the man who headlined a sitcom about nothing
Nothing for you.
has managed to build a whole movie out of that routine.
In the early 1960s, the American morning was defined by milk and cereal. And the two undisputed giants of the cereal world were Kellogg's and Post.
Major news from the breakfast world. The Post Cereal Company has reportedly invented a shelf-stable fruit pastry breakfast product.
No.
Yeah.
His new film, Unfrosted, is a mostly made-up ode to the processed food favorite.
The real story that we started with, and I think it's the only real thing in the movie, is that Post came up with this idea. Kellogg's heard about it very late and decided to try and catch up.
They got a fruit-filled pastry, Dingus.
Dingus? Who is a dingus?
Post, they did it.
Our own Sunday morning contributor Jim Gaffigan plays Edsel Kellogg. When Seinfeld asked him to sign on, he was there.
I would never bet against Jerry Seinfeld. You know, sometimes comedians can be funny for a decade or maybe a decade or two, but Jerry seems to have transcended, 4 or 5 decades now.
Ready, and action.
In addition to writing and acting,
Reset, let's go again.
Seinfeld stepped behind the camera for the first time.
Did you know you were going to direct it from the beginning?
No, but I thought, what would be the least work? The least work is for me to just tell the actor how to say it instead of me telling the director and then the director telling the actor.
It must have been fun casting this.
It was so much fun. And Hugh Grant was the guy who made the movie.
Hello, everyone.
Playing a certain tiger.
And look who's here.
Good morning, Thurl.
Is it good, Bob? Is it? Have you seen today's copy?
Oh, we'll get it, Thurl. We've got the best serial writers in the business.
We do indeed. We are so blessed. They're great. Just great.
That's it. That's the line we've been looking for.
Seinfeld called on a bunch of his comedian pals, from Amy Schumer and Melissa McCarthy.
Stan, my friend, I believe we have split the atom of breakfast.
To Sarah Cooper.
Excuse me, Mr. Kellogg needs you. A meeting of the 5 cereal families has been called.
By who?
What was he like as a director? What surprised you?
He was very specific with what he wanted. There was a moment where Tom Lennon had to do this line where he had to do this, voila. And he did a take, and then Jerry came over and adjusted his hands just slightly like this. And everybody's like, how is that making it better?
Behold, life.
But then he did it, and it actually was better.
I'm precise, but for my thing and what I do, I have to be that way. This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Director Jerry Seinfeld walked us through a Kellogg's-style funeral for a taste pilot who blew up during the creation of the Pop-Tart. And yes, that part is made up.
You always want to be in very serious places in comedy because it makes it easier to be funny.
Why do you think that is?
The more you're supposed to act right, when you act wrong, it's funny.
When a man gives the last full serving suggestion of himself, only then is he truly deserving to be buried with full serial honors.
This is where we lay in our premise. The premise is full serial honors. This is not something that you have heard of before. Right. So you have the characters repeat it 3 times. Full serial honors, Mrs. Schwinn.
That's quite an honor.
It's a great honor.
What is happening?
Snap! Crack out! Pop!
If you look at my face there, this is what's hard about acting and directing at the same time. I'm directing here.
Yeah.
I'm just watching, are they doing this right? I have completely dropped my character. Luckily, I don't take my work as an actor at all seriously.
But he did make sure the other actors felt taken care of.
There was actually a moment on set that I think it was the only moment I saw somebody get a little bit tense. And Jerry was just like, guys, we're making a movie about a Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
You know, he put it all in perspective so quickly.
That's good, Kyle.
He would give a speech every now and then, and it would be pretty inspiring.
What kind of things would he say?
He would just say, like, I really appreciate you guys, your contribution. This is a really exciting thing for me. And he would speak from his heart.
Jim Gaffigan and Sarah Cooper, when they were talking about you on the set, they described you as a real leader, that you give speeches and...
Sure,
you know,
yeah. I'm a comedian, so I'm used to talking to people.
Yeah.
In an uncomfortable situation. That's what stand-up is. This is a very uncomfortable situation. Mm-hmm. We're expecting to laugh. You're expecting to be funny. That's not that different from a movie set. This is all awkward, and everyone's nervous.
These things are the greatest 2 rectangles since the 10 Commandments.
Yes, we have adjusted. So, okay.
We had to ask whether Kellogg's was in on the action.
Kellogg's did not have anything to do with this movie.
Right.
When you see the movie, you will understand. No company would want a movie made about their product like this.
Right, it becomes abundantly clear.
Yes.
And now, here's an exclusive extended interview from Mo Rocca and Jerry Seinfeld, something you can only see right here on Here Comes the Sun.
This started as a joke, as a bit.
Yes, it was a bit. I suddenly realized how much I loved them as a kid, and I think this really calls for a deep exploration. And I went out, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I said, I went to the supermarket, and I bought Pop-Tarts, and I brought them home, and I made them and started writing late at night. I realized it was just like I was like a dog with a bone. This is my kind of thing.
I thought you were kidding at first. So
I'm always kidding.
Okay, and then you pursue it, and then you get serious about it, and then you make it great. So so you thought this would be a good bit. You went and you bought the Pop-Tarts. You brought them back.
Yeah, I really wanted to explore the feelings that I had about it for myself, because I knew I can't be the only one that has these feelings about it, because it was so unique. You know, there was cereal.
Yeah.
You know, cereal is. And they have nothing to do with each other. They take you to the same place, right, but from a completely different direction. So that was what was exciting about the Pop-Tart. This rectangular was like this envelope. It was a thin rectangular item that you put in your toaster, which I had never used in my life, the toaster. What would I want with the toaster?
Right.
So you remember those moments in your life.
When the Pop-Tarts came on the scene, I mean, what do you think attracted you to them?
I think, looking back on it, it was clear that a lot of thought went into this. There's 2 per pack, which is exactly what you need. The packs are individual, the different flavors. You know, there are certain things that go in your hand and do something to you. I've never smoked cigarettes. Since I was a little kid, I've always hated cigarettes. But a pack of cigarettes is a phenomenal thing to hold in your hand. It just feels good. It feels right, the way it's made. And that Pop-Tart box, putting your hand on that in a supermarket, your adrenaline, you're going, I don't know what this is, but I'm in on this. I want to be part of this.
And did your family have sort of a Pop-Tart policy where you
Policy?
Well, I mean, because some parents did not allow them in the house.
Where did you grow up?
In Bethesda, Maryland, but we would.
Oh, so those were bright people there. That was a higher IQ in Bethesda, Maryland. I grew up in South Shore of Long Island.
And were you allowed to have them for breakfast? I mean, because for some people they were seen as dessert.
I don't know what you're talking about. We ate absolutely anything at any time. I didn't have a salad till I was 40. That's not a joke.
How much of this do you think is about the name, though, the success of the Pop-Tart? Because it's a great name.
90%.
Really?
Maybe 95%. When you're a kid, Country Square, Pop-Tart, it's over.
And so just so people understand, Country Square was the name that
Post came out with.
Right.
They did arrive basically simultaneously to the shelves.
Yeah.
But the graphics on the Kellogg's, they were just better at it.
They were just better at it.
Yeah.
Who would want to eat a Country Square? I mean, it's...
Maybe they thought it was wholesome. Maybe Post was going for a wholesome angle.
And I know you said that for many kids, it's the first thing that you actually warm up.
The Pop-Tart is.
Yeah,
and the cereal is the first thing that you assemble.
Right.
And eat on your own. I'm going to get the milk. I'm going to get the bowl from over there. I know where the spoons are. And you put that together. Otherwise, you just sit there and your mother puts food in front of you and you eat it.
But here you have real agency.
Exactly, agency. Yeah. And I often spoke of agency when I was 10.
When you were 10, 11, and 12.
Yes, I just thought, Mom, there's no agency here.
Will there be a sequel?
I never planned anything in my career.
Yeah.
This TV series was not my idea. The movie was not my idea. I just hang around, and if something happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I just like being a comedian.
Steve Martin's been making stage and screen audiences laugh for over 5 decades. One of those audience members was filmmaker Morgan Neville, a fan since childhood, who convinced Martin to allow him to create a documentary about his life and career. I sat down with both Martin and Neville to learn more about their journey. Okay, you don't usually associate the sound of the banjo with the view of New York City, but with Steve Martin, it all seems to work. He played for us at his apartment, and to everyone there, he sounded amazing.
I blew it there. You got it.
But to him, it wasn't quite good enough. In some ways, it sums up how Steve Martin has lived his whole life.
Well, excuse me.
And now you can see for yourself. A new Apple TV project, Steve Martin, a documentary in 2 pieces.
You better pull yourself together.
Traces his path from anxious kid to the superstar we've come to know.
You know, I have figured out one thing that would totally put an end to show business, and that is if the human race, instead of having 2 arms, just had 1 arm right in the center of our body. Now, the reason that would put an end to show business, how would people clap?
Near the beginning of the first film, you say, I guarantee I had no talent.
Yes.
None.
I stand by that. Well, meaning I couldn't sing, dance, or act.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Steve Martin.
Steve Martin.
I am a wild and
So what do you think if you had no talent? What did you have?
A love of show business.
Why don't I interview you as we're driving?
It's called biking, but sure.
Martin tells his story with the help of filmmaker Morgan Neville, whom you may know as the director of the 2018 Fred Rogers doc, Won't You Be My Neighbor? So you kind of heard through the grapevine that Steve maybe would be interested?
I heard that somebody in an elevator asked Steve if he was interested in doing a documentary.
Are you serious?
That is true. And he said maybe. And that was the crack in the door.
It's more than just a crack. Neville got all of Martin's early performances, his detailed diaries, and a good chunk of his time. You've been a fan since you were 12 years old?
Yeah, even younger. When I was 12, I convinced my dad to drive me to Las Vegas to see Steve do stand-up at the Riviera.
Wow.
So I actually got to see Steve do stand-up. I actually went to the early show and the late show that same night.
I was at both of those shows too.
And you also said this is one of the things that maybe you discovered more about with Steve. You're so modest.
I think you have to be. I remember Mike Nichols told me once, he said, when I'm in New York, I'm Mike Nichols. When I go to LA, I'm thinking, how am I doing?
Seems Steve took that to heart. By the late 70s, Steve Martin was wildly successful beyond even his dreams.
We are two wild and crazy guys.
He was a fixture on Saturday Night Live.
Be obsequious, purple and clairvoyant.
His comedy tours would sell out coast to coast. His stand-up record, Let's Get Small, was the first comedy album to go platinum. And then he left the stage. Not to give anything away, but the end of the first film is you're walking away from stand-up.
Right.
Why'd you walk away?
I was exhausted by it, and I thought, wow, when I do stand-up, I have to go there. If I do a movie, I stay home and the movie goes there. And also, it had a sense of permanence, like you could get the thing exactly right.
I don't really know karate.
I didn't think so.
So Steve Martin went from stand-up king to movie star.
'Cause I'm a dentist and a sex sale.
But he still had his moments of self-doubt.
Why don't we just calm down now, sir? I'll tell you why we don't calm down. Because you're not excited. It takes two people for a we to calm down, doesn't it?
There's this one moment in there where this journalist says to you, hey, Steve, one question.
Yeah.
Why aren't you funny anymore?
Yeah. It was a bad moment because I was thinking that myself.
Were you really?
Sure.
Why? What was that moment?
Well, you go through highs and lows in your career. So at any moment, you could be thinking, everything's working, everything's feeling great. And then, a year later, you're going,
Bang, bang, Maxwell's silver hammer came down upon her.
But there have been plenty of highs.
We obviously have mutual control over our body.
Our body. It's my body. I'm not sharing my body with anyone.
Everybody's gonna be real disappointed.
Martin's made more than 40 films, some of which are now considered comedy classics.
Well, they're just intimidated. They've only seen us on the big screen.
Sometimes I sort of look around and go, how did this happen? Where did this come in? And I go, in my most self-congratulatory moment, I go, it all came out of my head.
At 78, he's on a hit TV show. He's back doing stand-up with Martin Short, and he has, by his own admission, mellowed with age. One of the things you talk about a lot in the second film is that you've changed, and your friends talk about it too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at one point you say, I wasn't mean, I was just removed?
Yeah, I would say.
What do you mean?
I remember Tommy Smothers said once, because I was writing on this show, is talking to Steve Martin is like talking to nobody. But no, I have changed. I don't know how to quantify it. I'm just nicer, friendlier. I have this theory that as you age, you either become your worst self or your best self. And I feel like I've become my better self, and I can see other people becoming their worst self. They become more hostile, they become more difficult, and it's a pretty clear line for me. I was after that quality that is indefinable, where you say, I don't know why it was funny, but it was.
Yeah, he says he has no talent, but with his life, Steve Martin's created a masterpiece. What did you learn about Steve through this process?
Well, nothing.
Nothing? Then why do it? What was the point of doing it?
Well, it's part of being in show business,
But there's something more to it for that, because you don't fall for these trappings of show business. You know what I'm saying? You didn't have to do this.
Yeah. No, it's a fantastic outcome to have a documentary done about you.
So is this kind of what you do? A documentary is just a natural progression?
I used to watch, I'd still watch American Masters thinking, wow, one day I'd like to be a subject of a documentary. And then suddenly you are. And I'm 78. When else?
Again, an extended talk from my conversation with Steve Martin and Morgan Neville, something you can only see right here on Here Comes the Sun. So the first part is this just fascinating archaeological dig into your career in stand-up. Had you looked through, there are these tapes and notebooks, even a diary from 1975.
Steve actually saved more than he thinks he saved. I mean,
I did, one of the things I got out of this was a 11 terabyte hard drive with everything digitized. And I didn't know I had all this stuff,
I think we scanned 5,000 things at your
Jeez,
house.
yeah.
But all the audio cassettes, because you would go in your early stand-up days and just leave a tape recorder going.
Well, I would at certain times. I would. I don't know if we had those. I did it later, but I would record my show like at the Troubadour on a cassette, and then dutifully, I hated to do it, but listen to it back. And the one thing I learned was no drinking.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How did you learn that?
Well, it'd be like second show, and I did a bit with a glass of wine, like I was a Playboy or something. And so the waitress at the Troubadour would just bring me up a glass of wine. And then I heard the tape back, and just a little bit like that. And I never do that again, and I didn't.
That's great. There is a value to, even though it's painful to listen to that.
Yeah, it's painful to listen back.
And is it painful for you to listen to those old tapes now?
I don't listen to them. It would be painful.
But Morgan made you listen to some of them.
Well, I had to listen on camera. Yeah, you're right.
It lasted about 3 minutes.
Yeah, I think I said, I can't do this.
Why?
It's very hard to look back. Just, because the premise is you get better. And so the further back you go, theoretically, the worse you are. And I don't know, I just don't need it. I don't know, I don't need it.
In both of the films, you talk a lot about your dad and how your dad never could really give you a compliment.
He had a hard time until later.
Did that fuel you?
No, but it didn't dissuade me. I just figure generation gap. And also, I sort of got it because I wasn't 100% perfect. If you come off stage, there's elements that weren't working, that are working. But then when success started to come, that was something my father could understand. He could put the aesthetic judgment over here, but the success, was undeniable. My mother once said to me, I was at Neiman Marcus the other day, and when they found out I was your mother, they got so excited. And I'm thinking, how'd they find out you were my mother? Because she told them.
Was that nice to hear?
Yeah, it was, happy for her.
And I know you've talked about this in your other works. You wrote this beautiful New Yorker piece about your dad.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, with this film, do you feel like it changed how you saw him or how you thought about it?
Well, I had already changed how I saw him long ago. We had a good rapport as he got older. I took him out for lunch every day, and he had a sense of humor. When he died, people came to me and goes, your father was so much fun. He was so funny and so enjoyable. And my response was, he was? I never saw that.
You chose to put a lot of the vulnerable moments, a lot of the, let's say, failures in this film. Why focus on that?
Because we learn from failure. I think...
How much failure is in there? Jeez.
Too much, apparently.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But...
Not too late.
But part of it is, what is a failure at the time doesn't necessarily make it a failure in a life.
When an injury ended Kevin James' college football career, it set him on an unlikely path to Hollywood stardom. Here's Jim Axelrod.
Yes, my car. You good? Yep. So this is where it all starts.
This is it.
For Kevin James,
The Q-tip.
one of our most popular and successful comic actors of the last quarter century, all roads actually lead to stand-up.
I see it, I say it, I sing it, I say it. It's like a verbal wood chipper.
And right here on Long Island.
This was the East Side Comedy Club. First place I ever did stand-up. I think I had a couple Coors Lights.
A couple?
Couple, to get the courage up. And then I went in here, and this was the first place, 1989, July 26th.
35 years later, he has quite a lot to look back on.
I love you, especially that part.
Delivery man Doug Heffernan made him famous on King of Queens. Mall cop Paul Blart made him a bankable star.
You like this stage?
Yeah, I've been here many, many times.
But it's still stand-up, like his new special Irregardless on Amazon Prime, that makes him happy.
You ever try to delete an app? You got to do that hard press on the phone, first of all. All the apps start shaking.
You're on a crazy journey, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. And hopefully it still continues.
Oh, they know somebody's going. They know this.
A high school football star, James went off to play college ball at Cortland State in upstate New York. When a back injury ended his athletic dreams, a public speaking course sparked some new ones when he played it for laughs.
So some light bulb went on.
For sure.
That I have this capacity. I have this talent.
I didn't know what it was, but I had something. I don't know how you bottle it and make money off it, but I never went back to school.
He went to work honing his style.
Tell you what else annoys me, the size of muffins. How big are muffins gonna get before we all join hands?
Affable and observational, never dirty, and always with an eye on the future.
I just want to lose enough weight so that my stomach doesn't jiggle when I brush my teeth.
You don't work blue. You never have.
No, because I knew it was gonna prevent me from being able to get on a TV show. I want my act to be able to go and play wherever. It's like I want to build an act that people can relate to.
By the mid-90s, James was big enough to bag an audition for Saturday Night Live, a chance to follow comedy legends like John Belushi, Bill Murray, Eddie Murphy. He fell flat on his face.
It was the worst audition I've ever had in my entire life because it was literally me in a room and they were filming and it was absolutely brutal. And I just started doing my stand-up to no laughs, but I just kept going through it.
Which is where you learn all you need to know about Kevin James, living proof that no one fails. They just stop trying.
Here's what I don't understand about that story. 99 out of 100 people would curl up in the fetal position and never move again. I just bombed a Saturday Night Live audition. Not you.
It was the best thing that happened to me.
My eyes are getting weary.
Losing out on SNL meant he was free to audition and win the lead in a pilot called The King of Queens.
What? He's making fun of my shorts again.
The bet Kevin James made on himself when he left college
He's 5. Be the bigger man.
had paid off.
Just frustrating, you know? He's so well dressed, I can't come back at him with anything.
Do you remember the moment of the phone call where you were thinking, my life has changed?
Yeah, it's, well, we got a call, and it's like we're moving on to the next level.
In less than a decade, he'd gone from driving a forklift while moonlighting at Long Island comedy clubs to starring in a network sitcom.
Just enjoy it. Enjoy who you are, you know what I'm saying?
Too fast, perhaps, to completely trust the success.
Even amidst all of this success, you were still cranking in your head, this may not last. They're going to find me out eventually.
Well, that's my whole career. I think my whole career, everything, every movie, you just go, they're going to figure. If someone literally tapped me on the shoulder, God just said, hey, we know what's going on, right? I'd go, yep, where do I go? Where do I go? It's all up? All right. It was a fun run. Thank you.
Everything hurts. Last week I woke up, I asked my wife, I was like, hey, did I play rugby yesterday? She's like, no, you shook a can of paint for me. And it wasn't even a big can. I'm talking the little Haagen-Dazs size.
But at 58, married for 20 years, Kevin James would now have a hard time making the case that it's not going to last. Maybe the only doubters now? His 4 kids.
Do your kids think you're funny?
They do at times.
Are your kids lethargic? Because I got a slug farm at my house.
They have really high taste, which kind of like stung me a little bit. Like they really did. They were like, we get it. You're falling down in the mall cop thing, and it's good. But we're looking for a little bit more, you know. I'm like, oh, all right.
I'm gonna give you my phone number in case you want to grab a drink sometime.
I don't drink, but I do ride.
But for all the success he found in Hollywood, this son of Long Island will never stray too far from his roots.
Stand-up, sitcoms, movies. I say you're only allowed to do one for the rest of your career. What's it going to be?
Stand-up. It's just me and a mic, and I get to do it. And there's no process through the studio or the network of saying, well, we're going to change it this way. We're trying to cast this way. And it's like, you know, I really do enjoy the process, and there's going to be times where this is not going to work out the way you want, and you're not going to connect with people the way you expect.
You guys are the greatest. God bless you all.
And there's other times where it's like, yeah, you can still do this. This is great. But the opportunity's there to do it, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I'm still here.
Here's an exclusive excerpt from Jim Axelrod's conversation with Kevin James.
What's your process, though? How's the magic happen?
I wish I could tell you. It's trying a lot of different things, and the problem is my consistency in writing every day. I just can't be one of those guys that just writes every day and just journals and all that. And I've never really been that way. I like writing the most when I'm on stage, when I'm up there performing. And I feel like I have the audience, I have enough control over them where I'm going with my act and I know what I'm doing, and I know there's bits down there that are gonna be stronger, and I can chance a little space here to try something new that if I lose them, I know I can go back and hit them with the harder stuff.
Wait, so sometimes in the special we're all gonna see, for instance, there's some improv?
Oh yeah, not in the special that I shot. When it's taped, it's done. But the problem with the special when you're done, you're still doing that material a little bit and you improve it. It's like I'm always rewriting bits that are already on. That's my biggest. I hate it. I do that with everything, with all my shows and movies too. It's like the same thing. I just keep editing it, and it's like, let it go. It's gone.
So you got 9 years between Eureka, I found it, and hitting it.
Right.
What were those years like? Were you learning the craft?
Everything, yes. I would go pretty much with my brother and our buddy, and we would go it would be once a week where there were, an open mic night at a comedy club, but then it was every night. My brother was the one who yelled at me. He's like, if you want to do this, because he would say, where are you tonight? And I go, open mic night's not till next Tuesday, so I'm staying home, And he goes, why are you staying home? And I go, well, because I can't get up. He's like, you should get to the clubs. You should be watching. You should be, if you want to do this, you never know what can happen if you go there. And he was right, So I was like, all right. I went to the club and met someone who knew the local agents and stuff, and it was that kind of thing. And you kind of get a spot, and you talk to other bookers, and I have a room in Connecticut, and it kind of worked that way. And it just grew. And once that started kicking in, I just loved the whole world of it. I really did. I loved writing during the day. You wake up very late, you know what I'm saying? It was like 11 or noon, whatever you go. We would go to the club, the East Side Comedy Club. We'd open it up and just write with a couple guys in there, get a coffee in the club. And then that night we would put it up, and it was so much fun. It was so great. And then you get to go around and tour with these guys, and try to get into different, different places.
You strike me as if you were a ball player, you'd love to sit around the dugout and talk about two-seamer, three-seamer, like where do you hold the bat? You love the craft.
Yeah. I do, and yet I'm not organized in putting it together, but I do love talking about it. I do love, they say the key to writing is the hiding of its conventions. And it's like, I love how things are done and when I can see them. Like I'll go watch a stand-up and I'll be like, man, that guy's amazing. I'm not laughing anymore. That's one of the things about being in stand-up. For so long, you can, some jokes hit you and you just crack up and it just completely take you off guard. But other ones are really good, but you see the structure of the joke. You see how he's doing it. And I get interested. I'm very interested in that. I'm like, wow, that guy did it. He hit it so well. And just threw it away. And, I love that because I'm still trying to work on that for myself.
Do you feel comedians that rely on profanity, that it's somehow an easier route to go?
There are comedians that are very blue that I love, that make me laugh, really hard. So it's hard to say. It's not like I'm judging them. It can be an easy way to get a punch. And believe me, there's some jokes where I go, man, I just would love to just blast something
Throw in
in
one
here.
F-bomb.
I would love it. Just one, just for the shock alone. But, you still, an audience is going to get tired of it. If that's all you're doing, you still have to work at it. You still have to get through it and design jokes, even if you're doing it. Otherwise, the audience will get tired of it too. It wears off.
Do you tell your kids, I'm just curious, when your journey from what you're explaining was fueled by a passionate connection to what you were doing every day.
Yeah.
Do you tell your kids, whatever else you do, when you're making your own life choices, look for a passionate connection?
100%. My daughters are looking for, through colleges now and stuff like that, and they're so much smarter than I am, by the way. They're so beyond me. But, and they start panicking about what do I got to, and I'm like, I wouldn't worry about any of that. Just really, you're so young right now. It's gonna come. It's fine. You never know where it's gonna come.
I'm Tracy Smith. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you here next time on Here Comes the Sun.